You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating talk radio. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DAHLIA, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I finally saw the Odyssey. I know it's been weeks and I know it's been out, but I have a few things to say about it. I liked it, didn't love it, but I liked it. The story, I read the Odyssey a few times in school because I went to 12 schools. So you would move, every time I would move to a new school, they would be like, hey, we're just about to start reading the Odyssey. And I didn't mind it because I liked it. Ulysses, or Odysseus, depending on whether it was, told by Greeks or Romans, but, Odysseus, after fighting the Trojan War, tries to get home to his wife Penelope and Thamelicus, and the trials and tribulations. And he's trying to navigate not ticking off the gods, being there for his men, and resisting temptation. And it's a poem. The Odyssey is a poem. And, there's been adaptations of it in film, but it was interesting because I think it was 2003, 2004, the movie Troy came out with Brad Pitt. I liked it. I know a lot of people, had issues with it. I loved Troy. I thought Troy was a fantastic movie. And that was, where you got to see Sean Bean as Odysseus. And then you had Orlando Bloom as young Paris. And you had Helen of Troy. And it was a really, really well done movie. I thought they did a good job. Was Brad Pitt miscast? At first I thought he was going to be, but he did a good job. He was good. His body looked good in the movie too. So after Troy, I'm watching Troy and I go, okay, they got to do the Odyssey. And I was teaching my boys about the story, and I'm like, so Odysseus, he was the one that came up with the Trojan horse and these stories, and he was very wily. He was a very cunning general. And so I'm like, okay, you just did Troy, now do the Odyssey. And here it took about 22 years later for Christopher Nolan's adaptation of it. And it's a hit. Multi-million-dollar opening weekends. It's on IMAX everywhere. But it was, I think there was some lost opportunities, and they changed the story around, which I would not have done. I thought that was kind of odd. Like, the Lotus Eaters, that's where the crew members, go to the island where they're fed lotus. They don't want, and there's these beautiful women and they don't want to go home. They changed that around. Charlize Theron got a bigger role, and I see why they did that. But when you have a really, really good story, you don't have to mess with that. You don't. You could have kind of worked with that. I also thought it was a little odd, that because they're in Grecian times, right? They're Greeks. There was the diversity was nice, but they didn't speak as if Greece, like Thamelicus was calling out to Odysseus, Dad. Okay, they didn't say Dad. I think there was also some F-bombs dropped, so I thought that was a little bit odd. Elliot Page was one of the things brought up by critics. I thought Elliot Page did a fantastic job, transgender male, gifted actor, and I loved her in Juno and X-Men. But again, it was a role that wasn't really in Odyssey. And so you kind of felt like they wanted to add parts to, again, check off the box and check off boxes. And so, overall, I don't think the criticism of the diversity was necessary. Movies now, if you don't have enough Grecian actors, but they did also change the way they did Helen of Troy, in terms of, I thought Helen of Troy went off with Paris at the end, and tried to save the Trojan people, but it looked like they had her still married to Menelaus and Agamemnon. So I was kind of confused by that. So I don't know. To me, when you have such an amazing book or an amazing story or an amazing poem, all right, you don't want to go too far off. This is why people are being very, very protective of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and any other movies that are going to be done in that, because when you know the story, if you start to mess with the story, it makes people mad. All right, Ready Player One, a fantastic book. The movie, okay, but oh my gosh, you didn't have to mess it up. Don't mess things up. But I wonder why Hollywood keeps making that same mistake. I see where they'll drop F-bombs when they really didn't speak like that. Now, I'm not saying you have to do the old, it didn't have to be in Greek, and it didn't have to be, but, dad. They didn't say dad. It was a little bit odd. Also, one thing that was kind of interesting is while the Odyssey is about, the triumph and Odysseus coming home, and I did think the ending scene, where he does deal with the suitors, I thought that was very well done and very close to the poem. They spent a lot of time talking about the regret and how bad wars are, like they wanted to add that messaging. And even though the Odyssey had messaging, a lot of they're Greek tragedies, we get that. It was almost like they were trying to give us a modern lesson, and especially when you had Athena, the god of war, that kind of orchestrated everything. It was a little confusing, and it was a little bit like, look, are you wanting us to escape back to Homer and what Odyssey wrote, or are you trying to do a 2026? I'm going to check the box, make sure Hollywood's happy, make sure I don't get canceled type of movie. Matt Damon pulled it off. I was kind of concerned because, again, Sean Bean as Ulysses or Odysseus in Troy, I think would have been perfect, but now he's 22 years older. So Matt Damon had the, I think he did have the breadth to do it. I was surprised Anne Hathaway. I thought at first she was going to be miscast, but I think she did a very good job. Love Tom Holland. He did a great job. So overall, I give it an 8, out of 10. It was good, but I didn't love it. 1877 Dr. Dolly, don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's Aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
Welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. So sad news for former President Joe Biden. We are being told that his cancer has spread further. His son, Hunter Biden, had revealed in a BBC interview that the cancer has spread and is causing him significant pain. He says, quote, "The cancer has spread, metastasized into his bones and further. It's very painful and it's very debilitating in many respects." He says it's really sad to watch. The only thing that I'd say about my dad, about his health right now, is I wish he could complain more, but it's not good. He said, however, that his father is, quote, "still doing his thing and attending speaking engagements." Now, Joe Biden had revealed that he had prostate cancer in May of 2025. I thought it was a little sooner than then, but according to Fox News, it says May of 2025. It was just weeks after leaving the Oval Office. And by the time our president, Commander-in-Chief, who goes to Walter Reed Medical Center, who should have the finest doctors in the country, by the time his prostate cancer was diagnosed, it was stage 4, aggressive, already spread to the bones, metastasized, and he received a Gleason score of 9, indicating both the cancer's aggressive nature and the potential that he had been living with it for years. This really angers me. What were the doctors thinking? How do you miss stage 4 prostate cancer in the commander-in-chief, the leader of the free world, where all eyes are on him? Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, vice provost and oncologist at the University of Pennsylvania, said he had it while he was president, and he probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Prostate cancer is slow growing. Even though you could have aggressive forms of it, it still takes a year or two. It still takes a few years. He did not develop it after he left the White House. For him to have stage 4 prostate cancer, and I'm furious because we've had such a lackadaisical attitude as it pertains to prostate cancer, and we had a very lackadaisical attitude as it pertained to our former president's health, his cognitive function, his physical health. What the hell were people thinking? Now, Jill has spoken out, Dr. Jill Biden. She told previously the hosts of ABC's The View that his cancer has slowed him down. He keeps his schedule, but he's slowed down. She says, stage 4 cancer is, and he's 83, so I think the mix of everything and the medications that he's taken has made life a little bit more difficult these days. You know, the question I think a lot of people have is, one is, look, where were the doctors? Why didn't anybody examine his prostate? Why didn't anybody do the blood test? You could do a PSA test. Is it that, and if we really want answers, they're just going to plead the fifth. If you do a Senate hearing or a congressional hearing, the medical board should investigate. This is malpractice. This is negligence. Unless the doctors say, look, we asked, we offered. He refused. He signed against AMA, against medical advice. All the questions surrounding how our commander-in-chief is receiving the top medical care has not been answered and has left more questions than we could count as it pertained to what happened with Joe Biden. And on top of all the questions we had is, is he of sound mind? Is he shuffling? Is he okay? He has an abnormal mole on the back of his scalp. Is that melanoma? He's fine. Clear bill of health, can execute the duties of commander-in-chief, and then he comes out of the White House with stage 4 prostate cancer. Now, is it that the doctors screwed up and were just completely dumb? I doubt that. Is it that President Joe Biden refused care? I doubt that. What it might have been is everybody knew. They caught it, didn't catch it early enough, but they knew, started treatment. That's why he kept going back to Delaware, but they didn't want to tell the public. Why? Because they wanted him to run another 4 years. So that's of my thinking. My thinking is they just lied. And so for those of you wondering, when should you check for prostate cancer? Personally, I recommend that you get a PSA done between 40s and 50s, especially if you're African American, Black, you need to do it younger. If you have a family history of prostate cancer, if you're having any urinary issues, and it should be a conversation with you and your doctor as to when you should start screening and how to follow the tests. Sometimes you could have 2 normal PSAs. Normal is under 4. But if you went from 0.7 one year to 2.3 the next, that's suggesting something's going on with your prostate. Now, the USPSTF says for men age 55 to 69, the decision to undergo periodic prostate-specific antigen-based screening for prostate cancer should be an individual one. So they're not saying to do it or not. They're saying, well, it depends. They're playing it safe. They say before deciding whether to be screened, men should have the opportunity to discuss the potential benefits and harms of screening with their clinician and to incorporate their values and preferences in the decision. They say screening offers a small potential benefit of reducing the chance of death from prostate cancer in some men. However, many men will experience potential harms in screening, including false positive results that will require additional testing and possible prostate biopsy, overdiagnosis and overtreatment, and treatment complications such as incontinence, erectile dysfunction, etc. In determining whether this service is appropriate in many individual cases, patients and clinicians should consider the balance of benefits and harms on the basis of family history, race, ethnicity, comorbid medical conditions, patient values about the benefits and harms of screening and treatment-specific outcomes, and other health needs. They say clinicians should not screen men who do not express a preference for screening. And if you're over 70, they recommend against PSA screening for prostate cancer in men 70 years or older. So the answer that you're going to get from the previous White House is Joe Biden was over 70 years old, so we didn't screen him. Really? And the mantra behind all this was, well, prostate cancer is so slow that you're going to die of something else. But cancer is chaotic. Cancer isn't always predictable. And you want this man to run another 4 years when he already looks like he's struggling. I'm not buying it. And if you notice, so much of the recommendation was about educating people on the harm of screening. What ended up happening, just as a quick recap, is when lawsuits against doctors for malpractice and negligence and failure to diagnose went through the roof, doctors are like, I'm not missing your cancer. I'm going to screen you. And patients are like, I don't want to have cancer. So yeah, screen me. So a test would be abnormal. They would then biopsy and they would go, looks like you're positive or you have abnormal cells. Well, do you want to keep the prostate with abnormal cells and do treatment like radiation? Or do you want us to remove the prostate? So patients are like, remove the prostate, it's cancer. But then when you remove the prostate, there could be a lot of complications of that. Erectile dysfunction, bladder issues. So you had some individuals regret ever being screened. And so the USPSTF had to look at this and say, look, prostate cancer doesn't kill as often as other diseases. Do we really have to be aggressive? But then it went the other way. And then, of course, adding on to that, people are looking at the cost of medical care, the cost of taking care of our seniors. And so you're going to see more of a push to do less. Well, now you have a former president that is going to have a very, very painful final chapter in life because somebody didn't think and didn't use common sense. Screen for cancer and then make the decision. But the idea of, well, let's not screen because then they're going to have to make a decision they might not want. Let's just keep them in the dark. No, don't keep them in the dark. And if you're so worried about, what people will think and how, think of a man's life first. I don't want to see Joe Biden have a painful next chapter. He doesn't deserve that. Somebody screwed up or somebody's lying to us. 1-877-Doc Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret.
Powered by science.
We're back in the Dr. Dolly Show, 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So, making news is Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is being very open and transparent and taking people on her journey of her freezing her eggs. And it's making news. And what she says about the process, though, is kind of interesting. So she has revealed that she's freezing her eggs and saying that the procedure is going to give her more control over her future. And she blames Trump for how women need to approach pregnancy and fertility, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me because didn't he increase access to IVF and is a strong supporter of women fertility and family and kids and Trump accounts. So I'm a little confused about that. But she said she has spent years considering the procedure, saving for it before deciding to undergo fertility preservation, which is, kind of expensive. So she's pretty privileged to be able to do that. But she said that she wanted to open up about the process because women are often not taught enough about their reproductive health or family planning options. She says, I've made the decision to start freezing my eggs. I was weighing it for a very long time, and I think I was saving for it for a very long time. She was elected to Congress at 28. She said serving in office at a young age meant navigating major life decisions publicly in a way many people do not. When you get, you don't have to be public about this, thank you, but okay, if she wants to be, okay, nobody's asking to hear about your eggs. She said, when you get elected young, you have to grow up in the public eye in a time that most people usually get to grow more privately. I disagree with that because every Gen Xer and millennial now are, YouTubing and TikToking and social media-izing their life. I mean, look at kids now, the gender reveal, the ultrasounds, I think the younger people are kind of reveling in the, being out there but yeah. All right. Well, that's what she says. So she thinks that what she's doing now to show everybody her freezing her eggs would help normalize conversations about fertility, pregnancy, menopause, perimenopause, PCOS, and other aspects of women's health that she believes are too often overlooked. She says, as women in general, we are not taught about our bodies, referencing puberty, pregnancy, perimenopause, menopause, and conditions including PCOS, which now they're changing the name of. She says, I think we need to show more depictions of women having full lives in every context and every choice. And then, of course, she starts bashing Trump, saying that there could be a political tax associated with disclosing such a personal decision and arguing that female politicians face scrutiny around marriage, pregnancy, and family planning that male politicians do not. She blames the Trump administration for an increasingly hostile environment for women's reproductive choices. And she says, in the political context we're in an administration that is dedicated to politicizing women's bodies and taking our choices away from us and punishing us around decisions to be pregnant or not be pregnant. Okay, please. The Roe v. Wade overturn got the federal government out. So Roe v. Wade overturn basically said, you can't have the federal government intervene. Okay, if states want to limit abortions, they can. If they want to allow abortions, they can. But a federal government is not allowed to weigh in on this and a woman's right to choose or a fetal's right to life. Federal government is out. That's what that did. So, why don't you read what happened? Read the briefing. So she says we're going to take our power back and we have to talk about it. So, choosing to freeze eggs is a fascinating concept, because I went through school when I was younger and I knew that I had a very, very limited time to start a family. And I had to plan it to the day, plan it to the T between my training, when I would be, finished with delivering all the babies I had to do for my training, taking care of patients, then having the first baby, the second baby. And I was very, very fortunate to be able to, with the help of God and my husband, get pregnant exactly when we wanted to, conceive right when we wanted to, both times, and be able to carry the babies to term. It was a little bit tricky because moms who are doctors and are working 100-hour weeks struggle to have healthy pregnancies, but we were able to do it, thank God. And I didn't think about freezing my eggs. I didn't think about trying. I was like, I'm going to do it the natural way. We're going to have sex. We're going to have a baby. And I was very, very grateful that worked. We have made leaps and bounds in medical advancements being able to help women that do struggle with fertility. If they have a partner whom they love, that would be the most amazing dad ever, but he has a low sperm count, they're able to make that baby work. If there's a mom who would struggle to carry a baby to term, we have means to make that work. And I know there's a lot of back and forth going, what, survival of the fittest? We're tempting nature. We're messing with nature. Yeah, but my argument to that is we have evolved to be able to figure out how to help make our babies come to term and live. So I think that is a part of our survival of the fittest. You have good genes and you want a baby and there's just, something not allowing you from a hormonal standpoint or, from an environmental standpoint. I think we have every right in medical science to help make that work. Do I think we should make test tube babies from clones? No, I don't. And so, women who now are looking at, well, I might not be getting married. I might not find a partner. What do I do? They have options now to freeze eggs. It's not the cheapest option, but there's options. And I've seen a lot more people do this. It's in light of fewer people getting married, fewer people wanting to get married, fewer people wanting to, join and have a spouse and a father of their child that they know of, that they're aware of, that they may divorce later. And so, people are looking at options, and the fact that we have those options and Ocasio-Cortez's very expensive, fancy congressional health insurance helping her pay for that. I don't want to hear that we aren't being very supportive of these choices. But when she says that, women need to be, taught and educated on what their options are, when do we get sex ed in school? Is that when you tell a child not only about natural sex and natural reproduction, but is that when you talk to them about, you could take one of your eggs and you could freeze it. You could freeze some of your eggs, and then you could later choose to have a random sperm or somebody else's sperm. So when do you teach that? I do believe that there are a lot of reproductive options, but in encouraging, the natural way to do things is not evil. It's not bad. And you got to understand that now that these woke schools want to teach everybody everything, by the age of 8, that could be very confusing to them. That they have little eggs right now that they could possibly get harvested and use later and crack and scramble and do. That's how I told my kids when they were born. They're like, Mom, how were we born? I go, I went to the grocery store, found some eggs, looked for my favorite egg. There was a nice googly-eyed egg with funny hair. I picked him, and it ended up being you after I scrambled you up. They believed that for probably most of their lives until they got sex ed. So good for Ocasio-Cortez. This is something she wants to do, but to take something very private and personal and a gift, especially when you have a lot of infertile women not being allowed to do that, and then turn it into a Trump bashing moment, as a little tacky. Especially since we have Trump working on getting fertility drugs cheaper. And I'm not here to sit here and sing his praises, but kind of be accurate here. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit, and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
We're back in the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Well, while everybody is trying to squeeze in the last bit of summer, they are hitting the beaches, and I don't blame them. I love the beach. I love swimming. But unfortunately, this is the time of year where we start hearing about the Vibrio vulnificus infections. And sadly, those are deadly. Health officials in Louisiana are urging beachgoers to please take precaution. It is a flesh-eating bacteria that is found in coastal waters. Louisiana has confirmed 9 cases of Vibrio infections this year, according to the state's health department, said last week in a news release. All were hospitalized and 5 people died. During the same period over the previous decade, Louisiana reported an average of 7 cases and 1 death. Seek immediate medical care. If a wound exposed to brackish or salt water becomes red, swollen, painful, warm, or discolored, according to PBS News. So Vibrio bacteria thrive in seawater and in the brackish mix of fresh and salt water found in estuaries and lagoons. Most infections, however, we usually see from May to October. It could happen year-round, but that's when more people are out there in their shorts or cut up and, and out there in the water. And sadly, many happen along states along the Gulf Coast. Doctors say the Gulf is an ideal environment because of the right amounts of salt and heat. The most deadly type is Vibrio vulnificus, according to the CDC. 1 in 5 of those infections are fatal, a much higher rate than other types of Vibrio. Florida also tends to have more infections than other states. They've had 14 Vibrio vulnificus cases and 2 deaths so far this year, compared with 33 cases and 5 deaths for all of last year. Records show more cases in years when Florida is hit by tropical storms and hurricanes. So you could get Vibrio also by eating shellfish. Every now and then we hear of somebody that ate oysters at a restaurant and then they got sick and died. So undercooked shellfish and raw oysters are a concern. But we see more people, however, get this because they have a cut or breaks in their skin, and the bacteria in the water get into it. And doctors say severe cases are seen more often in elderly patients, people with weakened immune systems, those with liver disease, diabetes, and certain chronic diseases. And this is where I don't notice when I bruise or cut or anything. I don't know when I scrape myself. I mean, I'm just so rumble tumble. I'm hiking all the time. I'm doing stuff that I don't notice it. But you might want to really evaluate that before you jump into water. Yeah, I mean, I used to feel like the salt water would cure my wounds. And so it's like, and it would, cure acne and things like that. So I would jump in. But unfortunately, if your skin has a vulnerability and a break in its barrier, these bacteria like warm, salty environments, and your body is salty and your body is warm. Scientists are saying climate change is helping the germs proliferate and spread northward. A 2023 study found that the northernmost case has been shifting by about 30 miles each year, and that cases overall have been rising. So unhealed cuts, scrapes, recent piercings, tattoos, surgical incisions, not a good mix. That's what Vibrio likes. They say people should immediately wash cuts and scrapes thoroughly with soap and clean running water after coming in contact with coastal waters or raw seafood. They should see a doctor if they start developing symptoms such as fever, chills, red hot areas on the skin that start to turn dark and blister. Now, I'm not a big oyster eater, but PBS News says oysters are a particular risk and there's no way to tell if an oyster is contaminated just looking at it. So wash your hands with soap and water after handling raw shellfish. Wear protective gloves, especially if you have a weakened immune system. And health officials do recommend you cook your clams and your mussels and your shellfish. They recommend throwing away any with open shells before boiling and steaming. Yeah, it's a shame we have to think about this. Nigeria fowleri, amoebas. Sadly, this is the time of year when we see those. Now, thank God we haven't really seen many cases this year, but unfortunately, those people get the amoebas by being in hot springs, swimming in fresh water, and then as they kind of brush up the silt, while they're playing in a lake bed or riverbed, if they go underwater, they could sadly get it up in the nose. In fact, I believe in Oregon parks earlier this spring, they found amoebas when they tested the water. I don't believe we had any cases, but the quote-unquote brain-eating amoeba, or now the Naegleria fowleri, there was a study done between 2016 and 2024, found the amoeba in water samples taken from 3 of 5 popular recreation areas across the western United States. And now the Statesman Journal says they found it in 2 of the U.S.'s most popular national parks. The study involved researchers from the U.S. Geological Survey, Montana State University, Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, and published in American Chemical Society Journal. Fortunately, tests done in Oregon for the brain-eating amoeba did come back negative. But the Naegleria fowleri thrives in soil, warm freshwater lakes, river ponds, hot springs all over the globe. And the fatality rate, if you get one of these up in your nose and it decides to crawl and hit the brain, fatality rate is 98%. I believe they only saved one person by making them hypothermic and freezing it out. But most cases are fatal. Researchers looked at Yellowstone National Park, Grand Teton National Park, Lake Mead National Recreational Area, Olympic National Park, Newberry National Volcanic Monument, and they found Naegleria fowleri in 34% of these parks. So if you go underwater, it can easily go in. And so we definitely recommend nose clips. We recommend to not swim underwater in these freshwater areas, and to not kick up the silt and kick up some of the nearby shrubbery where these amoebas can sit on. Yellowstone National Park is the country's first official national park and the 3rd most visited as of 2025. They have a few rivers and hot springs that host it. And so the Boiling River, the Firehole Canyon swimming area, Firehole River, multiple hot springs over the years. So they just want us to remind people to be careful that these are out there. Now, how common? It's very rare for somebody to get one of these. But when you get it, because it's so fatal, it's so tragic. According to the CDC, fewer than 10 people in the U.S. die each year. Now, what do they die of? It's called primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, meaning your encephalitis, an inflammation of the brain and meninges, the brain and spinal cord, was caused primarily by an amoeba. Call it PAM, P-A-M. And the infection is caused by Naegleria fowleri. There's been 167 reported cases between 1962 and 2024. Of those 167 cases, only 4 people have survived. The water will go up your nose, travel up the passages to the brain, and that's where people are diving, swimming, relaxing in rivers, lakes, playing around, pushing each other in the water. Early symptoms could be a real bad headache, fever, nausea, and then it could progress to confusion, coma, seizures, and then death. Death can occur within a week of somebody being affected. And so now entamoeba histolytica, entamoeba histolytica, I believe you acquire more from a GI standpoint. So be careful out there and be aware. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.